Hey y'all, welcome back to Raider Dog Ranch. Today we're going to be talking about pruning saws. When do you need a pruning saw? How important is it? How good are they? I've got a few of them here on the table. Budget pruning saws, we're going to compare those and talk about some of the characteristics that you should be looking for when you buy a pruning saw. So let's dive in. So when do you need a pruning saw? In a lot of cases in a garden situation, you might have hand pruners for stems on flowers or shrubs or something like that. Or you might even use a pair of garden shears like this. Have a little notch right here in the back designed to be able to cut through small branches, but that's not going to get very far. The hand pruners would be the next step up to cut very small branches, but then you might even step up to a large pruner like this. But the loppers are limited too, to probably something around 1/2 inch or 3/4 of an inch of in diameter. That's where the pruning saw comes in. So this saw is specifically designed for cutting soft wood, live wood, in fact. And so it has very tall teeth. It's a very aggressive cut. And generally speaking, these are cutting on the pulling stroke. It's important because if you're cutting over your head, you want to create the force when you pull down, not when you are pushing away from yourself. So these are specifically designed for cutting branches, and your only limitation is going to be the length of your blade. When you pick your pruning saw, there's going to be a few things you want to consider. One, I just mentioned, the length of the blade. Try to find something that you think is going to be useful for your application. If you're going to be cutting larger limbs, you may want to get a 13 or a 15-inch blade. For standard use, I would say something around a 9 or 10-inch blade is going to suffice. Another thing you're going to look for is, do you want it to be folding like this one, or do you want it to be rigid? The rigid ones tend to be a little longer. They have a fixed handle on them for larger use. These are very portable, very easy to throw into a bag, and I've got an assortment of them here that we'll look at in just a minute. The other thing you want to consider is the blade steel. As with all knives, blade steel is important. Carbon steel is the preferred steel for knives and blades because it holds an edge very well. It has a good balance between the metal hardness and the metal softness. That means hardness in that it'll hold the blade, but softness in that you can sharpen it. So there's a handoff or a trade-off there. The saws that I have today are a budget version of saws. Some are carbon steel, some are not. So we'll look into that and we'll do a little bit of cutting with them and see if we can tell a difference. When they're new, my assumption is you're probably not going to be able to tell much of a difference. There's other options like the handle. This is a D-handle design, also a folding. So, and it turns down a little bit. Notice how some blades actually curl and some blades are straight. The curling blades tend to be useful when you're cutting over your head. So when you're pulling down, the angle is like this. So you're cutting into the wood on the full stroke instead of a straight. Anything at or below your head, the straight ones tend to be fine. So let's take a look at the ones I've got on the table. This is a Fiskars brand. Fiskars is well known in the blade industry, I guess you would say. They make a lot of knives, scissors, loppers, all kinds of things. In fact, this lopper, that's a Fiskars brand. I like that one. This one is a retractable blade. This is pretty rare. I came across this and I thought it was interesting, so I thought I would pick it up. It's got a carabiner hook, so it could just hook to your belt if you're not carrying any kind of a tool bag or anything, and just a threaded lock on the side. So loosen it up, send it all the way out. And this is a 10-inch blade, and you put it out and lock it in place. And it's got a pretty good handle. There's a little bit of rubber here on the back to give you a little bit of grip, but honestly, it feels a little bit cheap and lightweight on the back when the blade's out of it. It transfers the weight up to the blade. When it was in, it really didn't feel like that, so that's kind of interesting. Now this blade does not appear to be a carbon steel blade. I looked all online. I could not find anything that says that this is a carbon steel blade. It says it is a power tooth saw, which is maybe a proprietary grind on their teeth, and it's a lifetime warranty, which most Fiskars things come with. But I would question how this would last over time if it's not a carbon steel blade. Another thing you want to know about carbon steel is it does rust. So don't leave your tools out in the moisture because they'll rust pretty quickly. You can also, or you should also, apply a machine oil or an all-purpose oil to your blades to keep them from rusting. All right, next up, this Groundwork folding saw. This Groundwork is the exclusive brand for Tractor Supply. I got all of these from Tractor Supply. And it has a ratcheting opening. I don't know, I'm not sure what you do with that, but it ratchets at a few different spots. That maybe could be useful, kind of becomes a right angle saw. I think that angle is nice. And then that's fully opened. So this is a guarded handle. It would guard anything from hitting your hands, maybe a branch after you cut it or anything like that. Also, when you go back to fold it, that's a nice comfortable grip and it folds down without any worry about hitting your hand. We'll look at the others later. That is kind of a nice safety feature. One of the concerns about the locking blades is make sure you lock it all the way out. That one is locked. This one is a high carbon steel blade, and so it should last a little longer than the Fiskars. Next up, I told you everything was from Tractor Supply, but I just realized that's not true. This one I picked up from Harbor Freight before these others. This was one that I had and I wanted to do a comparison of these, so I picked up a few more. This is a very cheap Harbor Freight model, but it's got some good features on it. It's a nice rubber handle, nice grip. It's got this little stop on the bottom that gives you a nice place to rest your hand. And it's got a locking blade like the others. So one thing you want to do when you get these, especially if they're cheap ones, make sure that you know that that blade is going to stay true. Most of the time you're cutting this way, so it's not like a pocket knife or something that's going to fold in on you, but it's possible. So this is the Harbor Freight version. This one is a 9-inch blade, and it is high carbon steel. This one is from Olympia Tool Company, and it's a little bit different design. It's almost falling outside of the pruning design, but I thought it was a nice change in style, and so I picked it up. It's got a belt loop, it's got a sheath, so it's easy to carry, and it's got a T-handle. So the T-handle is going to give you a much stronger grip. It's on a little thumb rest up here. The problem with it is it's only a 6-inch blade, so that's very short, but it is kind of nice that it has a stop. So if you've ever been cutting a tree and you pull it out and it's over your head or something, you have to get it back into the groove. That's a pain. It's kind of nice to hit a stop. They probably did that because it's so short and they realized that that's going to be a problem. So nice rubber handle, ergonomic style. It's got a little hole here so you could put a lanyard or something on it. This one is also a carbon steel blade. One of the qualities that you see in these cheaper pruning saws like I have here are quality of parts. So this is a completely plastic body and a plastic locking mechanism. These parts can fail, but this is why they cost less money. So if you look for a higher quality tool, make sure you're looking for a tool, maybe the body's plastic, but these parts here, you don't want those to be plastic. What happened with this one was this locking mechanism broke right at the pivot. So this can't lock anymore. So I would say that's an advantage to the Fiskars design, which is a sliding mechanism. Since that slides out, you do not have that problem. However, I would question, what are the parts inside this made of? So this is threaded. If this is threaded into plastic, that's eventually going to wear out too. So we'll take it apart and see. So that's a metal bolt that goes through, comes out the back. So there you go. And that piece looks like threaded plastic. So there is no metal insert here. The other question I have for this is a very proprietary blade design. I don't know if you can get replacement blades for this one, whereas these, that's just a bolt that holds that on. That's probably a standard blade that you could pick up. Same is true for this one, just a bolt holding the blade together. So that would probably be easier to find. But then coming back to the Olympia, this is non-replaceable. Once this gets dull, you either sharpen it or you throw it away. So something to think about if you're buying tools that you want to keep for a long time. Now these are all budget tools. They're not designed to last a long time. They get cheap in quality so that you can buy them cheaper. But if you were to upgrade to a better quality saw, these are some characteristics that you would look for. So there you go. Hope you found that video useful. Thanks for hanging out till the end. We'll see you next time.